Welcome back. We're in Chapter 1, the linguistic component of arguments, this time looking at Section 3, which covers negations. We have covered Section 1, sentences, statements, and propositions, Section 2, simple and complex statements, and now we're moving on to Section 3, negations. So, how do we recognize negation? Well, the negation of a simple statement is simply the denial of that statement. What do I mean by this? Well, when the statement is true, its negation is false. And when the statement is false, its negation is true. On the surface, this may be pretty simple, but in practical application, it's important for you to think about it in this way, because you may not have associated the fact that a statement and its negation have opposite truth values, and that's going to help us when we get into evaluating arguments. So you recall that we talked about negations briefly in the previous section, but do you remember what the symbol for negation is? Well, the symbol is the tilde or the minus sign. Either of these are usable, and we typically translate this as "it is not the case that," or more simply, "not." I think it will benefit you if you get in the habit of translating it as "it is not the case that." It will make things easier later on rather than defaulting to the simple "not." So you might want to get started. So again, the symbol for negation is tilde. Let's go for an example. I don't like you. And if we were to put this in logical shorthand, it would be tilde L. It is not the case that L, where L stands for the statement, I like you. Altogether, not L or tilde L would be equal to, it is not the case that I like you. This logical shorthand we're going to get into in detail in section 2.7, but I'm just introducing you to the idea briefly here. If a statement is true, then its negation is false, and vice versa, which we've discussed. Negations have opposite truth values. So if it's true that I like you, then it would be false that I don't like you. The negation of the statement has the opposite value of the statement. If it's true that today is not Saturday, then it is false that today is Saturday. Again, negations and their simple statement have opposite truth values. And let's represent this in what's called a truth table. We will get into truth tables in detail in section 2.9, but this is the truth table for a negation. So you see in the table provided, we have the statements P and not P. So P is just a traditional letter used to represent a statement. And for any given statement, there's two possibilities. It's either true or it's false. So in the first column, you see the P, underneath it true, underneath it false. Those are the only possibilities for statement P. It's either true or it's false. In the next column, we have the negation of P, or it is not the case that P. And you will see that this has the opposite values. So when P is true, not P is false. When P is false, not P is true. And that's what's represented in this table. Again, for any statement P, if P is true, then not P is false. And if P is false, then not P is true. Negations are one of our 4 types of complex statements. We reviewed these earlier. They contain a simple statement. For example, in the negation, I am not a horse, what is the simple component? Well, we remove the negation and we get, I am a horse. And remember, if it's true that I am not a horse, then it must be false that I am a horse. Negations have opposite truth values. And this holds for any negation. If the negation is false, its opposite is true. And if the negation is true, its opposite is false. So on your homework, you're asked to rewrite the sentences so the negations are clear. And reminded that double negatives are positives. But there's a hitch to this in that it might be used colloquially or as slang. And we have a specific example about this. In which case you want to write the negation and indicate that you have done so because it's slang or a colloquialism. Again, double negatives become positives. Single negatives are negations. What do I mean by that? Well, if there are 3 nots in a sentence, 3 is a negation. If there are 4, you have 2 double negatives, and double negatives become positive. So if there's an even number of negations in a simple statement, it's positive. If there's an odd number, it's negative. And I want to give you a quick note on a translation you're going to need to learn. When you see the term neither nor, it becomes not and not. I'm going to say this again because this is a really important translation you need to master. When you see the terms neither nor in a statement, it becomes not and not. When we get to section 2.9, we'll show why this is logically, but for now, I just need you to take this on and remember. So when we have, you are neither a gentleman nor a scholar, neither nor becomes not and not. People will often make the mistake as translating neither nor to either or, and that is not logically correct. Neither nor becomes not and not. So if we were going to translate this statement to clarify the negation, we have, it is not the case that you are a gentleman, and it is not the case that you are a scholar. Don't make the mistake of translating this as you are either not a gentleman or you are either not a scholar. Don't do that. Neither nor becomes not and not. Again, this is an important note. Neither nor in a sentence becomes not and not. All right, another example. You ain't gonna do nothing to nobody, Batman. Well, we have the ain't, we have the nothing, and we have the nobody, which is 3 negations. 3 makes this a negations, but it would become something like, it is not the case you are going to do something to somebody, Batman. That doesn't seem right. So I think that it's obvious that this is slang or colloquialism. But what it literally, logically says, it is not the case that you are going to do something to somebody, Batman. So we've had 2 examples here, our neither nor, which becomes not and not. It is not the case that you are a gentleman, and it is not the case that you are a scholar. We have 2 complex statements. Each statement contains 1 negation, and we've written it out. In our second example, we've got a colloquialism or slang, which logically does not say what the author is intending. So we've written it out as demonstrating its logical components and identified it as slang. So best of luck on this assignment, and I look forward to talking with you again soon.